At one point, I tried to caution that people were being set up, that there was an attempt to taunt people and lure them into agreements to do things that were later going to be cracked down on. I've been doing it for years. I've done it in memos, I've done it in grievances, I've tried to do it in one on ones when I was allowed to have them, tried to do it civilly. After the increase in the electronic torment, I was no longer as nice about it. And when it got really, really, really racist, I reflected that in some ways. And I know that. But what I just saw this morning is that somebody took, not only did they, for several years, take my mother and bond her to water bonds for a city she's never even been to. Not only did they take the fact that my father was an instructor for a German software company that had an AG in it, and also used a certain kind of programming language that they don't discuss much in the American paradigm, right? Not only did they do that, and not only is that absolutely 100% apparent in the so called waivers and special notices that are available through the Health and Human Services and Medicare related to COVID 19. But they have tons of very high production value materials, which, by the way, don't have typos. They don't have misspelled words. They don't have errant punctuation. They don't have the strategically encoded hacks in their promotional materials, in their training materials for the COVID 19 health outbreak that they've intentionally coded time after time after time after time and again for the last 5 years into other things having to do with industrial safety or having to do with cybersecurity. They're very, very well edited. They're very, very well laid out. They're very logically structured. And presumably, they've all been created in the last 6 months. I've spent over 4 years now trying to report, sending grievances. Not one person had the time to get back to me. Not one person seemed to think it was important. And they've taken things I literally did that were supposed to actually be about prevention. And now they're putting it forth as some sort of investment in the future, as this concurrent process with the emergency pandemic response. Not only that, they have increased the potential for illicit distribution of drugs while also decreasing the standards around which one needs to confirm in order to be able to do it legally because of an emergency. Somehow you don't need those standards to give people psychotropic drugs because I guess they're stressed out now with the COVID. You don't even need to meet with them in person in order to prescribe them drugs. You know what that means? You don't need to meet with them in person to give them a diagnosis. Not only that, but I'm concerned that the theft of the evidence I had accumulated in connection with appointments by the former governor of Illinois to the Illinois Pension Board and the subsequent alleged indictment of one person from the city of Chicago regarding pension fraud. The same day, there was another announcement of a need for recirculation of Deutsche Bank funds, is directly connected to what's happening now. That it's another indicator of a comprehensive campaign to not only hack German banks, but to hack German software platforms, including software platforms that have to do with medication and pharmaceuticals and other aspects of German based modalities that have global implications, including implications in terms of the role that Germany plays in the European Union, which would also mean the European pension scheme. And that brings me to the most alarming thing when everybody's so concerned and so dedicated to being a hero. What is the primary priority? Getting paid. Making sure that their benefits and their pay is taken care of, to what seems to be the exclusion of anyone else, because other jobs require people to adhere to certain standards to make sure that their jobs can be done adequately and safely, and they're not following those standards. They've suspended audits, they've suspended compliance reviews, and what I did see that had anything to do with compliance was basically asking for an exception. I'm concerned that there's a literal campaign to create digital duplicates based on specific kinds of biological indicators that are being used in the financing of the alleged treatment, which is a response to the financing that leads that person to the hospital or the clinic to begin with. And that they're literally using Medicare and people who claim to be working in the best service of Medicare related services to do this. What determines whether or not somebody dies or whether somebody is allowed to be one of those statistics that gets to recover? The worst part is chips. You all know exactly what I mean. CHIPS isn't just children's health insurance, especially when you guys already committed to a global pension racket using biological weapons. And the thing is, if you don't admit there's a problem, you can't get help. I am not going to agree to pay you to murder children so that you can get paid. I don't agree to pay you to murder children so you can get paid. There were many, many other things you could have done, but you didn't want to do those things. You wanted to do something else. And unfortunately, those other things you wanted to do, you weren't successful at. I am not going to pay you to murder children so you can get paid.